second Keynote panel session of the day, and any of you who were here earlier this morning and would have been here for when Sarah Simons chaired the session, obviously she has a Coronation Street perspective on matters, but with my accent I would suggest I have an Albert Square perspective on manners, but the same rules apply, especially when it comes to questions, and we'll go through that at the end. So I hope everyone's enjoyed the conference so far. And on this session, this is about developing leadership potential through coaching and mentoring, an absolute crucial area for the future of organisations, departments, the quality of teaching and training, and of course developing personal leadership. And there's no better way to start the discussion on this area with a panel to my right of the sector's leading experts. And on the far right, we've got Sally Dicketts, CBE. After holding senior posts in both secondary and further education, Sally has been a principal at Milton Keynes College and then Oxford and Cherwell Valley College before becoming the first chief executive of Activate Learning. And they provide and manage a range of education provision, including 7 colleges, 7 schools, apprenticeship provision and a business school. And to Sally's left, we've got Steve Spence, 13 years experience in our sector as a teacher, researcher and senior leader. He's a specialist in creating a whole college culture that places teaching, learning and assessment at the forefront of the organisation. Steve is also the lead for teaching, learning and innovation at the Sheffield College. Next we have Anshi Singh, alongside her teaching roles at both Bracknell and Wokingham College and Reading College, who are both managed by Activate Learning. She's a real advocate in supporting young people to break through any societal barriers put in their way and to create an education system that is reflective of society and raising the profile of BAME in education. And Nafi Graham-Brown, to my right, is the head of Life Skills and Community and a member of the senior leadership team at ELAT. She's also the national co-chair of the National Association of Teaching English and Other Community Languages to Adults, currently a doctoral candidate at the UCL Institute of Education, and in December is off to New York to immerse herself in the American adult education sector. So we've got 4 leading experts in the country talking about coaching and mentoring. And before we take questions at the end, we're going to ask our speakers in turn to speak for about 4 minutes each on what is their experience of the coaching and mentoring they have had in their career and what impact did it have, and also what is the main reason they are using coaching and mentoring to develop others. How have they set this up and why? So without any further ado, I'll pass you on to Sally.
Can't work the mic. Right. I think you need to have a little bit of background about me to understand why coaching is important. Can I ask you to stand up if you know the difference between coaching and mentoring? Right, a goodly sum. Thank you very much. It's also to get oxygen to your brain. So all of that you didn't know, perhaps you could stand up. I am a failed learner. I'm dyslexic. And when I was at school, I was told that I was thick and probably should go and become a shop assistant. So if somebody told my 18-year-old self I'd be sitting on a stage talking about coaching and running a large organisation, I'd have laughed. But coaching has been important, and the reason for that is at Activate we have a particular learning philosophy, and I won't bore you with it, but what we do believe is that the brain has 2 aspects. One is the thinking brain, which is really important, but the other part that is neglected often in education is the emotional brain. For those of you who've read The Chimp Paradox, it's the chimp in you that escapes. And when I became a leader, which was at quite a young age because I made a mistake in my application form and the panel gave me the job I hadn't applied for, it became very clear to me that the only person you can ever change in this life is yourself. And the very act of you changing will impact on your students or will impact upon the people you're working with. So I went on a road of discovery to try and make myself a better person. And if I became a better person, then other people around me would actually hopefully become better people. So I started coaching a long, long time ago, and I chose coaching deliberately, not mentoring, because the luxury of having somebody listen to you without judgment, without telling you what to do for an hour, is extraordinary. And to me, coaching has made a huge, huge difference. And it's one of the reasons why I also am more than happy to coach others, not always brilliantly because I've the time. And one of the reasons why, if you're a woman and you want free coaching, get your organisation to join the Women's Leadership Network, because that's one of the organisations certainly I coach with. And that is important. Why is it important to an organisation? Well, as group sizes become larger, and they are in FE, because our funding is not enough, so the only way we survive is to have class sizes of about 20, 25, a relationship with a student is absolutely important, because how do you understand their emotional needs if you don't know them? So we are experimenting in parts of the organisation with performance coaches, where they actually work with the students and help their performance. The results, and we've only done it, and I was saying earlier, if you're a university person in the audience, you would say that our research evidence is pathetic and non-acceptable as an evidence base. But certainly attendance and results with some very difficult students has hugely improved. So we have now trained and got a senior manager who is going to be our senior coach. He's training the whole of the senior team on Monday in how we will do it as an organisation. And he's then going to train about 20 managers so that those managers can coach all our teachers. And then we're going to train a whole range of teachers as we've done with our performance coaches and roll it out in the organisation. And I'm absolutely convinced that coaching is the difference, because for some of our students and our staff, it's your confidence, it's your behaviours, it's your emotions that stop you being successful. Unless you've got brain damage, your intellect is never the reason why you can't get somewhere. It's nearly always your emotions and behaviours. And if you haven't read The Chimp Paradox, and I have no issues, I would read that. And another book on leadership, if you really want to get coaching, is a book by David Rock called Quiet Leadership.
Thank you. Steve.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. It's quite strange to be introduced like that. Obviously, paying somebody to do your bio is a good move, and I'll carry that on. And then I kind of sit here, and Sally, obviously, and everybody, these expert panels, and it is genuinely an honour to be here. And then I think, well, why am I here? And then I think back to the summer where Martin strategically approached me as the evening went on and asked me again. And quite frankly, I was drunk when I said I would do it. So the last week has not been kind, thinking about how can I sit here and talk through these different things. So the FE sector, to me, means everything. It's wonderful. We're winning. Look, today, we are definitely winning. And I think part of that intro is what Martin saw when I spoke, where he saw me and got me drunk. We are winning. And it is the most important sector. It is the sector that will change societies. The social mobility report that came out at the end of April just this year, it's in black and white in that paper. Social mobility has not changed in 4 years. The FE sector is the most important sector to do that. This is the sector that will put the curiosity in students, will plant the seed, will give them those opportunities to go on to wonderful things that Sally's just talked about there. So for me, the power of the sector is incredible. And it takes me back to, I know this is more of a reflection on coaching and mentoring on myself to this date, was I went to my office in 2006. I'd only been teaching for two weeks, and my PGC teacher had left. Amazing, and I still do this with staff now. She'd left a report on my desk, and it was from Sir Andrew Foster, and she'd highlighted one paragraph for me to read. I can literally remember it now. I was up at in Buxton, University of Derby there, and the quote that she highlighted was, I just thought was phenomenal, and it was about Andrew Foster said that the FE sector is the naughty middle sibling to schools and universities, and that has stuck with me the whole time, and that is why I'm very passionate about the mentoring, the coaching, annoying people like I do to make sure that we have these systems in the colleges that I'm in at the second and previously, and that we have opportunities for people to grow and develop. From my personal point of view, coaching and mentoring has had a huge impact on myself. From that PGC tutor all the way through my career, I think about going to a large FE college in 2011 when we merged with this college, and I went and found, I was told about a teacher who would have a big impact on my career. I went and found that teacher and organised a coaching relationship with that teacher who worked with me for 3 to 4 years before I left and they retired. So that, you know, if we want people to develop, if we want people to create, that is entirely the culture and the processes that we need to put in place. I think one other thing that sticks out to me was there was a great quote by Mel Ainscough, professor at the University of Manchester a few years ago as well, who said that by its very nature, teaching is about inquiry. And I think that underpins the mindset of all, you know, everybody in this room certainly, but everybody across the sector who's really want to engage with certain things. And that is why coaching and mentoring are so important for me.
Yeah, thank you. And I would like to tell you a bit about my journey into education as an educator. I was an IT consultant before, and my job was pretty easy, very flexible around my kids. I had a very flexible schedule, but I was very concerned parent because my daughter, who started school, and she would come home and she would not let me do anything that would make us see different from others. So I was a very concerned parent. I thought I'll go to her school and I'll find out what's happening there. So I joined the school as a PTA, and I started doing the assemblies on cultural differences. The first assembly I did was on awareness on Diwali, which is the festival that we celebrate as Indians. And that helped my daughter a lot. She was in year 1 at that time. And she started thinking, I mean, she never told this to me, but I hope that this is what happened. She started thinking that we are different, but we do belong to this society. And now she's in secondary school, and she does these assemblies on her own. She's the lead, and she does cultural assemblies in her school. So this must have helped her. And when I started doing this in the school, I realized that there is not much awareness on BAME and the different cultures that we follow. So I thought I'll go and I'll become a teacher. So I went to Reading College, which is the nearest college, and I said, I want to be a teacher. What should I do? And they said, can you send us a CV and we'll see. And the next day I got a call from a manager, and he said, can you come and teach computing in our department, and we'll train you as a teacher. I said, yeah, that's the best thing that can happen to me. And I went there and I started teaching. It was November. So I took over a class in November. And in India, I've only had exposure to didactic form of teaching. I've never seen any other form of teaching. And in further education, starting teaching in November, I didn't know what I was getting into. By December, I was about to give up. I said, I've had enough. I just can't take it anymore. And then one of my colleagues, he suggested, there is a conference in Oxford. Why don't you go there? And you might find someone who will help you. I went there, and it was amazing. And I'm really glad I went there. I didn't understand a thing what they were talking about. They were talking about tools, techniques, and that we can use as a teacher. And because I was new to teaching, I didn't know what tools they're talking about. But one thing that stuck with me was they were talking about a coaching program that was for diverse educators. So I could relate to diverse, and I could relate to coaching. I said, and it was free. So I thought I'll join this program, and I'll see. It's free. Let me try it. I have nothing to lose. So I joined that program. It was a 6-month coaching program for diverse educators. So I went into the program, and I started attending these sessions, and I was provided a one-to-one coach. She was amazing. That's the best thing I've done in my life, I think. And that course has sponsored me for my master's in educational leadership at UCL now. So that's how coaching has helped me. The coaching has helped me to give me that feeling that I belong to this community, I belong to this society, and I am capable enough to sit on this panel. And before that, when I migrated from India, I never thought I can actually sit here one day. Yes, I can be one of those. So this is how coaching has helped me. And now I use that coaching and mentoring. I have planned a CPD on unconscious bias, because I think everyone here we want to integrate. We want that, we want inclusion, but there are some barriers on everyone's part, and I have developed this 45-minute CPD, and I do these CPDs at various places. I did that at UK FISHAT conference, I've done that at Derby University, and that's how I'm trying to break those barriers for BAME community, which I think is more than 1/5 of our population at present. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hi. Oh, thanks so much for sharing. I guess just to give a bit of background, very similar to Sally, you were talking about the chimp paradox, although I've never heard of it in that, verbalized in that way. But I think, I guess I first started being a lot more aware about the value of coaching when I started questioning my leadership skills. So, I mean, I went through a number of management roles before coming to FE. I've done the shop. I worked in McDonald's, retail and catering. So obviously the different types of management and leadership promoted in a lot of those settings. And then I did a PGCE, and on it was all about reflection. And, it was, I guess, anyone who's been through a PGCE recently will know that by the end of it, you don't want to do any more reflection, because that's just everything you do. But then, obviously that was of great value to teaching practice. But I guess one of the things that I wasn't making the link with was that the reflection was also important for management and for leadership. I feel, looking in at the FE sector and talking to other colleagues who are curriculum managers, that sometimes we do all these things in the classroom for our students. We want to develop curiosity, we want to develop creativity, but then we don't necessarily do the same thing for our colleagues. And so that was why I really came into coaching and leadership. I was finding that my management style wasn't good enough, it wasn't working. And one of the biggest things that I discovered recently at the Said Business School Prep for CEO course, which is a really, really good course for anyone aspiring for senior leadership, was how much your personal life affects how you are in your professional management life. Now, again, it was one of those links that I didn't make as clearly. Of course, I was working on myself. I had coaches, but it wasn't as effective until that penny really dropped. Before that, I tried to keep my professional persona separate from my personal life. But actually, the same way we look at our students and look at them holistically, we want to acknowledge the barriers that they have. We want to acknowledge the difficulties that they have. That's something we need to do for our own teams, our own teachers in leadership. So that's where I think coaching is really, really, really important. It's invaluable. That's how I came to coaching and why I think it's really important in terms of developing future leaders and our workforce.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Nafi. And a round of applause for our speakers so far. Thank you. Thank you. And thank you very much for your reflections. We're now going to open it up to questions, and we've got a new speaker in the house now, Lindsay Hoyle, and I'd like to think I'd be more like his style than John Burko. However, if you do stray and don't ask questions but give statements, then I may slip into John Burko mode. So just to be warned, and as Sarah mentioned this morning as well, it's really important we get through as many questions as possible. So we can really make use of all the expertise we have on the panel. So I'll take one question at a time, and then once we get to the end, we'll start to take more questions together. So if I can have show of hands for any questions, please. Sir, at the person at the back. Thank you. And can you say your name and where you're from, please? Thank you.
I am Dr. Harini Lakshminarayan. I am from Teesside University in the northeast of UK. And my question is specifically directed to Anshi Singh. You mentioned about the difference that coaching centers made to you in your career progression, rather career choice. Well, I'm from India as well, but I'm a resident in the UK now, and I have a child, so I share much of your emotions, I do. Now, how can you identify and isolate coaching centers from schools and colleges? Because I'm in my first year of PGCE, and I would very much want to be benefited by coaching centers. Do they reach out to us, and how do we identify them?
Okay. I went to this conference and they were talking about this coaching program, which was sponsored by Department of Education, and it was specifically for diverse educators. They will be running their 4th course this year. If you want me to give their contact details, I can do that after the...
Okay, thank you. Any more questions, please? Sir, over there. Thank you. To my right. Someone's just coming, sir, with a mic.
Hi there, it's Stephen Peacock here from Salford College. I'm just wondering, obviously, this is for anyone in the panel really. Authenticity is a big part of leadership. And if you're going to be coaching people, there must be some very kind of careful, ethical approaches that you're going to have to take. Has anyone got any insights to any challenges that you've overcome?
Do you want to take?
I think you're right. If you're going to do coaching, I mean, I will use a coaching style with the people that I have responsibility for, but the senior team have coaches and they're external. So I actually have 2 coaches, believe it or not, that do different things. And the team that we're going to train in coaching will not be part of the management structure for that reason. And we have the guy that we've trained as a coach has been coaching a lot in the organisation, and it's strictly confidential, so he doesn't come back and go, I'd watch out for that person if I was you, Sally. And that is absolutely critical, because if there is any leakage, nobody's going to go for coaching, one. Secondly, when we're now looking at rolling coaching out to everyone, it is to everyone. So I think you've got to be very careful in organisations where it's used as remediation. These people are not performing well, give them a coach. So it doesn't matter how authentic the coach is, coaching then gets a bad name. So coaching must be seen as a range of tools to help you as an individual become better. And as I say, for me, it's about behaviours, and the one thing that all leaders have to be, in my view, is authentic. If you try and be something you're not, hence the point where people, I love it when you interview somebody and they go, I never bring my personal life, it's okay, into work. And I sit there thinking, well, you're remarkable. Every day I bring my baggage with me. If you've ever read Pilgrim's Progress, I've got a massive baggage that I bring daily. And I take a whole massive load of baggage after a bad day at work straight into my house to my family, because as human beings, you can't, well, I can't put this on one side and this on the other. So I think you've got to be honest and open, but coaching must be secure if you want learning to take place. Learning only takes place if you're in a secure environment, so you have to set coaching up so that it is nothing to do with, if you like, the normal management. It is about your personal development. And I would hope if you're doing personal development, you don't have somebody writing a report which goes to your manager. You do it freely yourself.
Yeah, and just to follow on with that, like Sally, I also have 2 coaches, although one of them might be called a different name. But you've got, I found I had to be ready for it. And so, we might not all work in organizations where coaching is something that's, given to everyone. And you might feel, you might not know whether you want coaching, you might, not really understand it. But you can still start exploring those things, because I think as teachers, we're already halfway there. Reflection, like I talked about earlier, is one of the biggest things about coaching, is that you have to be able to do that work. You have to be able to look at yourself and reflect on what your behaviors are, how you're working about things, the baggage that Sally was mentioning there, and how that then impacts your daily leadership or management of others. And I'm not even talking about management downwards. I'm talking about the relationships you have with other people in your organization, your colleagues. How are you with them? How are you working with each other? You can still apply quite a lot of coaching models or techniques to that without necessarily being, in a personal coaching relationship with a coach. So I think there are kind of 2 steps to it in some ways. You could start in your own circle with the techniques that coaching promotes, about how you open conversations, how you are building relationships with others. But at the same time, when you're ready, and if you have an organization that promotes it, I would really just grasp it with both hands, because it does wonders for your personal development. So yeah, that's a tip that I would give out.
Can I make one comment, though, which I think is true, and why we're starting with the most senior and introducing coaching, is when an organisation, which may be something to do with your comment, so you offer coaching. So we've offered coaching to all the senior team, and you can't make people want to do coaching. What you've got to be really careful about, and certainly it made me reflect, is some of our senior managers have refused it. They don't want coaching. What you've got to be careful about, or I have to be careful, is go, well, they're 4 good managers. They've taken coaching because I believe in it. Therefore, they're great. Not sure about those people, though, because they've chosen not to have coaching. And in a way, you need a coach to actually discuss your prejudices about not choosing to take coaching, because it doesn't mean that person won't be a great leader. But that's why you've got, in my view, you don't do a scattergun approach. If your senior leadership aren't bought in, they'll either be derisory of the coaching or judgmental of those that choose not to do coaching. And that's your right. You shouldn't have to do it if you don't want it.
If I could just add, in terms of sort of developing a culture around teaching and learning and putting that at the heart of a large organisation, my previous organisation, coming through there, they had a really good advanced practitioner model. Teaching and learning coaches, they were called there. Since moving to Sheffield, and before I actually accepted the job at Sheffield, it was on the proviso that we would have a designated group of advanced practitioners under the names of learning development coaches, because it's easier to create those sort of conversations around teaching and learning, not always formalised coaching, but that was the only way to do it. Now, for me, probably in the last year, they've had the biggest impact across the Sheffield College in terms of sparking conversation, creating cultures, making it all right to teach with your door open, to create communities of practice, to team teach, things that have been around for probably 10, 12 years. But sometimes your starting point is defined before you get to an institution. So they've worked perfectly, but they don't report the information that they have with a group or with a community of practice or with an individual stays within that. It's trustworthy. It stays to those people. So people do want to share in those sort of things. There's no prescription as such as that. And I think from a large FE institution, and I know it's common now across the sector that you have coaches in place. I think in that 1 year, the fact that they are the beacon of trust, of development, rather than measurement and taking the more quality checks, if you like, that's been a huge impact at the Sheffield College.
Any reflections, Anshi?
I think for me personally, I think you have to be ready to be coached. And I could come out of my comfort zone because my coaches were helping me, but I was ready to take that next step. So that's the only tip for me.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, everyone. Any more questions? Lady at the front. Yeah, there's a mic coming.
Would the panel agree that not everybody could be a coach or a mentor? And I have found through research recently that there have been failures in coaching and mentoring because, one, it could have been imposed on somebody, and two, they didn't have the relevant support or coaching and mentoring themselves to take on that role.
Okay, thank you. Who on the panel wants to go first?
I'll go first, yes. Okay, I would totally agree with that. Yes, because, when I started this coaching thing, I was very new to education. I didn't even know what GCSEs are. And because I was ready for it, I wanted to do it. That's why my coach could coach me. And I think and I was ready to come out of my comfort zone. And I did it. I started teaching in November, as I said, and then I found this course in December. I joined the course in January, and I hosted a very big teach meet at Reading College in March. So I was just 4 or 5 months into this education system. English was my second language. I had no idea how to communicate with people. I went on Twitter. I wanted to do it, and she pushed me. And she said, you can do it, and you have to do it. And I just did it.
Yeah, and I think the reality is that to be a coach, there's a lot of training that's involved. So you're absolutely right. There are some people who are, who have obviously gone through that process. They've studied a lot. My personal executive coach is great, but the person has been going through years of study. So you're absolutely right, and I think there is that distinction. However, I would also urge us to think about using a coaching model of leadership. So it doesn't mean that you need to be a personal coach, but I think there's a shift in how we manage people that can be done, which enables those things that you were mentioning about, with the subject learning coaches, for example. It enables people to be more open about trying new things, more curious, trying to be more innovative, and having a leadership style that is more inclusive for our teams. And so, I'm not saying that everybody goes away and trains to become a full coach, but that we can start using those techniques in how we work with other people.
Okay, thank you. Any more reflections from the panel?
Similar to that, to be fair.
Okay, thank you. Can we take another question? There's a lady right at the back.
Hi, my name is Louisa William. I'm from New City College. I am an English lecturer and I also work as a learning and developmental coach. My question is again, just to start with an observation where you said, yes, confidentiality is so important as long as the receptivity of the person who wants to be coached or mentored. So my question is basically regarding those strategies that you can implement, and that is, please.
Okay.
No, but great question. Thank you very much. Cheers. Sally? I really don't. So I'd have to, and I'll be quick on this one because I feel like I would repeat a little bit. In terms of, a culture, especially at the institution where I've gone to, it obviously takes a lot of time, and it's not always going to go up as well. It's going to go up and down a little bit. But I do go back to the point that I made about the learning development coaches put in place, because they're nothing to do with performance management and measuring that, and because they are in the classrooms, active around classrooms, because they're modelling best practice. Because of that, people have started to share. People that you wouldn't expect have started to get involved. Now, not everyone is going to do that straight away. It's going to take time, and it's going to take maybe 3-4 different CPD sessions, different meetings with people, different visit. I visit staff rooms regularly to speak with people, and at times you get nothing back, but it does grow and it grows. And I think the reporting of the success and the fact that people are having the conversations is the first bit. So the biggest strategy for me, and I do feel it's a bit of a cop-out because I did say it to the last answer, is the creation of the learning development coach role.
I think if you look at it from a student's point of view, and it's really interesting that to us performance is such a bad thing. For our students, they have a performance coach. They chose performance coach. They didn't want learning coach. To them, this coach is their individual that meets with them regularly to help their performance. So I think it's interesting that we see performance as big brother monitoring and criticising. Our students, and I can only talk about our students, saw it as something very positive that was going to make them a better person. I think various things. One, there isn't only one coaching methodology. There are various coaching methodologies. Some of them are solutions focused, some aren't. So I think you need to discover what is the right, as there are hundreds of pedagogies for learning. So it is about what's right for you, your students, the subject you teach. There are so many different things. So how did we do performance coaches? We asked students their views. They told us what they wanted. We made it a really, really difficult thing to become. So you had to apply for it. We went through, we do a particular testing on insights to really get to know you and why you wanted it. And going back to the question about can everybody coach, actually some of our best teachers on the performance and going through didn't make it to performance coaches. And our performance coaches have definitely had students love them, they attend more. Their results last year, as I said, were much, much better. So from the learning point of view, why do the students like the performance coach? It's somebody, because let's be clear, how many of us in this room ever have somebody listen to you for an hour without any judgment and without telling you what to do? Most of us, if we go home, you might have a fantastic partner who will listen to you and then tell you exactly what you should have done to get you in that situation. And if your partner's like mine, it drives me to despair. Oh, God, that's the same problem you've had for the last 20 years, Sally. Haven't you learned anything? That isn't very helpful. A really good coach doesn't give you an answer. You have the answer within you. What a brilliant coach does is ask you the questions that reveal your own answer. And a brilliant performance coach for a student does the same. And when you're 16, you're both very dependable and also quite arsey. So if somebody gives you the solution you don't like as a 16 or 17-year-old, you sit and sulk. If they give you the answer they do like, they'll go and do it and say it was your fault if it doesn't go wrong because you told them. So it's really important for independence in learning. So I think you can do it, but you have to find out what method. Students love it. I think if you're in an organisation, however, where you think you are going to be measured on coaching, maybe you need to look for another organisation. And it isn't that coaching's bad, it's the way coaching is being used.
So just to follow on, I think I've been in a position where I've had to maybe coach my manager, because we may be in those situations where we've got this great idea. You've come here today, you've learned a bit about the coaching that happens at Steve's place. You want to bring it back to your organisation. How do you do that? And so it can be quite sensitive. But what Sally said earlier is it starts with you. Because the only person you can change is you. So it starts with you and how you might be able to change things that you do for yourself, for your students, for your team. And the same kind of thing that Sally was mentioning, listen to your manager. Actually, it's kind of, if you want to try and push an idea, if you really think it's a really good idea, there are, you can apply coaching in that kind of methodology to listen to them, build relationships, find out what it is that's important to them. If you can show that what you're doing with your class, for example, is working towards performance, is making your students happier, then that's certainly something that you can promote to your manager. You can say things like how you came here and heard about how amazing this program was and you'd like to pilot it with your organization on a small scale. Things like that can help you change mindsets or open up managers to new ideas. I think one of the other things that I always remember is happy people, happy teams. And that's one of the things that, you know, as a leader, I had to recognize that I need to be happy in order for me to make sure I can manage happy and support other people. So again, you know, all these things are positives of why you could bring a program into your organization, but you've got to start with you if you're not the manager or the senior manager of the organization.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, everyone. I think there was a question on the... Right, there's a chat there, and then I'll come to you, Madam, after.
This gentleman.
Yeah, the chat there. I think it's Robert. Was there
Thank you. My name is Robert Masunga. I work for the Heart of Worcestershire College. And my questions, I'm slightly digressing to mentoring here. I think a lot has been said about coaching. And my question is, at what stage did you realize or did you feel that you are capable of mentoring others? Assuming here there's a distinction between coaching and mentoring in practice. And why did you feel that? Is it because of your experience? Is it because of your qualifications? And obviously, finally, what preceded the other? Did you start mentoring people and then you went to coaching, or you started with coaching and then went mentoring, or it was done concurrently?
Okay.
Well, there's a question. Right, who's going first?
What time's David Didow on? That's a long question.
I can try. Yeah. For me, I think because I attend lots of conferences, so I think awareness is the key for me. If I think some of my colleague is struggling with something, and I went to a conference like this, and I have seen something there, I think I am ready to mentor, then I would do that. And if someone else has been to some conference and they have got some ideas and I don't know what to do in that situation, then I would like to be mentored in that situation. So this is what works for me.
I think I have to stop myself from mentoring because the default position is mentoring. I know more, I know how it's done, I can tell you the answer. And I think there's a danger there because then the person that you're supporting or you're trying to help, they're not going to find their style. I don't need people to be like me. I need people to be their own person, their own leader. I'm not saying that some mentoring isn't appropriate, you know, but it is like it's almost like it's interwoven into that relationship between coaching and mentoring. There may be one particular aspect that is useful or suitable for mentoring. And I've personally asked my executive mentor sometimes, what did you do when you were in your college in this situation? Because I can't figure it out. But the rest of the relationship was totally coaching because it was about me developing what I know. Of course, you know, maybe in an ideal situation, you do have to use mentoring more, maybe because someone's very junior and they're still developing and there's some really critical areas that can't default from the standard. But at the same time, it was definitely a learning process for me to give up, let go, mentor, and go towards coaching. And I would argue it's the same with students as well.
I would 100% endorse that. I remember years and years ago going to something like this, and they had a panel of the best principals they could find who all sat telling you how they became a principal and what they did. And I remember sitting there thinking, I don't think I could be like any of those people. And they were amazing, they were doing great jobs. And actually I went away feeling quite inadequate because I wasn't them, I didn't think like them, I didn't behave like them. And I think that's one of the issues about mentoring. I think it's fine to say how you did something, and I agree, I try very hard not to give lots of advice and end up by kicking myself because I have, because there is only one Sally Dicketts, there is only one Steve and Spence, and therefore we're all unique, and you're unique. So in a way, you do have to discover your own way. It might be helpful to know how somebody else did it, but you're not them, so you can't do it like them. And you have to painfully, and it's taken me 40 years, discover your own way. And after 40 years, I still get it magnificently wrong, but then I also, on a good day, get it right. So I'm always wary of mentoring unless it is guiding and giving people information, which is always helpful, saying how you did it, but being very clear that individual may not be able to do it as you've done it because they haven't got your background.
To add, Steve? Okay, brilliant. Okay, I'm going to take a number of questions all together now because we've got just over 5 minutes left. There was a lady at the front. We'll just come round with a mic. And the lady at the... If you can come to the front, Amanda, and then there's a lady halfway down. Yeah, got you, madam.
I was just going to say that my question was really for Sally to help us now, because when you started, you asked us to stand up where the mentoring and coaching was the same, and a good number of us sat. So I wanted to ask you the same question, and it has been answered. What exactly are the differences, or where do you draw the boundaries that this is coaching and that is mentoring? And I think I've got my response to that.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you very much, madam. Lady in the middle. Anyone else, if they want to put their hand up now, please do so.
Hi, it's Mandy Gutzel from Faircroft College. I totally agree with you all about what coaching's about, you know, so asking questions to reveal your own answers, curiosity, inquiry. I've tried to deliver some coaching within primary and secondary schools as well, and particularly with the leads in schools. But I'm really struck by the challenge and the difficulty, because we're talking about FE, post-14. The very thing you're talking about here is really not encouraged generally in our education system within primary and secondary school, and certainly not for the children. So it's a long-winded way, really, of me trying to say, you know, I suppose the question is really, how does FE and SET and all the other, you know, organisations and agencies, how do they work with secondary and primary to affect, you know, more change and coaching approaches in the way you're talking about? Because a lot of the learners that me and I'm sure a big range of other people end up teaching and coaching and mentoring often come to us because they've not had the best educational system within primary and secondary schools.
Okay, thank you. Right, that's a very broad subject, but Sally, do you want to...
Shall I give what I understand as the definition, and I'm sure you can all tell me I've got it right or wrong. As I understand it, you are mentored by somebody, so as a professional in FE, as a mentor, I could mentor Stephen, because we're in the same business, and as a mentor, you can actually give advice because you know what he's going through. As a coach, I could coach somebody, God forbid, in IBM. I know nothing about IBM, I know nothing about IT really, but coaching is about helping somebody come up with their own solutions, so you actually get them to judge the severity of the problem, if they've got solutions, and then they work them through themselves. So a coach, you can be coached by somebody who may not be an expert in the field you're in. You can never do that in mentoring.
Okay.
Would you?
Okay, if everyone agrees, that's a first for a panel. So I'll take one very short question if there's any left.
Do you want me to answer the primary, secondary?
Yeah, okay.
Because we do have schools. We have a multi-academy trust. We have UTCs and 2 secondary schools. I would say it's mixed in schools. I think I can think of some schools where they've absolutely embraced coaching in a major way throughout the organisation. My experience often is that primaries have been better. If I think of the schools in our group, one secondary school's really taken to coaching extremely well, and the other hasn't. And if you look at the leadership, tells you all. In the one school, they're very passionate about coaching. In the other, certainly the head teacher and his senior team are extremely cynical about coaching themselves. Therefore, they don't see the purpose of it. And again, you just have to work with those individuals and pick the moment when they need coaching to hopefully change their attitudes.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll take that question there, and it can be very, very brief, sir.
Kevin Lumsden from Essential Teaching UK and founder of a Coaching for Education programme. It's nice to see that we've still got this problem or dilemma of coaching and differences between coaching and mentoring. And one of the things that I've noted is hopefully I've still got some keynote speaks to do around the country on that. And I think it's interesting because we've got within Central Teaching that title doesn't matter. It's the element of the learner or the coachee or the mentee that is placed within the Johara's window that tells you where you need to be as the facilitator. So my question to you guys is we do a lot of work with schools about bringing in the classroom coach. Is that something that you've brought into your organisations?
Okay, very quickly.
Really quickly from me, at previous institution and this institution, not necessarily name that, but peer teaching, peer observations, teaching triangles, lesson study, and teaching squares. In the last 6 months, we've tried to do that because we want to get to a model where people are working with their peers around asking certain questions and develop that way. You're going to develop more like that. You're going to become more curious like that, and you're going to feel that it's less done to, and you're part of it. I asked a question earlier on right at the start around somebody had mentioned joint practice development, and that's something else that is a wonderful way of being able to say to get staff involved in CPD. It is no good going in and saying to them, right, we don't do targets very well here, so I'm going to tell you how I ought to set targets, and now we're all going to be better. We're doing it through a joint practice development model where everyone is at the same level, everyone is involved, works really well, and the research is out there dating back to 2008 on how powerful that is. But calling everything joint practice development doesn't work, so you have these quirky names, like I say, teaching triangles, teaching squares, lesson study, that if you can get off the ground, and we haven't got it massively off the ground at the second, but they do really work, it creates a better culture for people to develop in. Okay. Any more reflections on that? Okay, I'll bring the session to a close then. We're out of time. Sorry if you haven't been able to put your questions. Just to cover what we've covered the importance of confidence, behaviour, emotions, the chimp paradox, also how important subject coaching is, also tackling unconscious bias, integration, how to actually manage the professional and the personal, also the importance of privacy, trust, confidentiality, making sure that coaching and mentoring is rolled out to everyone. And also the question about a good coach will ask you the questions that will reveal the answer. And the last point is it's all about what is right for your students, your subjects, and importantly, you. A round of applause to all of our great panellists. Thank you.